Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. This is a little, I don't want to call it bonus video, but not like a bonus hole. This is a voiceover I'm going to do that adds to what I already released today, the video I released today called Too Big to Fail. I did most of that video yesterday, so this is going to be kind of like a day off for me. I already did some voiceover for my Journey series, but I'm going to do this voiceover. And, I don't want to call it a day off because we have this storm drain that's clogged, that's full of, we tried to make a cottage garden in our front yard. I'm working on completing a water garden that we've had for years, a little waterfall and a little stream, and then sort of a fish frog pond. And we've had that, then the cows destroyed it, and then I fixed it again this year. And we're going to build a cottage garden, and we've decided that we just don't have the time and energy to put into that. But we had all these wood chips that we got. You can contact like tree companies who are taking down trees, and they are chipping the trees, and they don't have anywhere to dump the wood chips, and they'll dump them for free on your property. And we have some piece of land which is not being used that much. So we had all these wood chips, and we were going to we're building a sort of a food forest. We're going to use those and this cottage garden. But what happened was that the chips all ended up in this storm drain that didn't have a grate on it, and it was probably clogged already. So it's filled with dirt, and it just smells bad. There's chickens are always around it, and it just and constantly is creating a problem. It's right near our back door, whereas in the winter it freezes and all that stuff. So I'm kind of locked into getting that thing cleared out. I watched some videos, and so I don't want to call that a day off because that's kind of a gross job to do. But I'm going to make less video content today. I'm not going to edit. But in all that, and to add to the too big to fail video, there is sort of a superiority complex that comes with being a truther, that you feel like just because you're more aware of the average person, and you're critical of the lies and deception, that you're not complicit, and you are, right? We're all complicit. Collectively, we have sort of a holier than thou attitude, but we're all, in one way or another, shills or at least contributors to the system. None of our hands are clean, right? None of us are clean from the depraved system because we're dependent on it. I mean, we might complain about it, we might not like it, but we are dependent on the system. And there's things that we like about the system. There's things that we enjoy doing. There are things that we either enjoy owning or enjoy participating in or enjoy watching in terms of content or whatever. I mean, you could go around making yourself miserable all the time, but that's no way to live. I mean, if you're a person connected to God, you have to have some gratitude. And with gratitude comes enjoyment. With gratitude comes, happiness and all these things, positive feelings. You don't want to be miserable and sulky and whiny and, all those ways that people can get when they're, awakened or whatever. You want to have some level of, positive energy, and you want to be somebody that people can be around, that you're not always complaining and talking about how bad things are or whatever. Because that, doesn't help anything. It just adds negative energy to the situation. A situation you can't change. Once you realize you really can't change the system and the way that everything's going to go down from here on out, then, you're free to enjoy what's there and, wait for things to change and get better or whatever. Like, I don't know whether I should root for the system to collapse or, do my best to prolong its collapse just for the fact that it would prolong a lot of our lives, right? Because when it collapses, a lot of people just won't be able to handle it and won't be able to survive that. It's going to be a tough time. But basically, I feel we should just let it run its course. It's going to find its own end naturally. It's ending. We don't have to do anything. There's divine system. There's checks and balances. There's contingencies in the divine system. And a system like this is doomed to fail because it goes against the will of God. All systems are doomed to fail, but this system is a short-lived system. And it's had a good run. And so it's, it's in its collapsing phase. So when people say, well, politicians suck, or everybody in the mainstream media sucks. Sure, they're more complicit than us, and they're gatekeepers, and they're full out shills, and many of them know what's going on, and they just go out there and lie and gaslight people, and that's worse than most of us, right? Most of the rest of us. I mean, they're kind of the bottom of the barrel, and they've gone all in defending and lying about and propagandizing a system that's against the will of God, and they'll all suffer their consequences for it. I've talked about some scars. People were wondering how to spell some scars. It's SAMSKARS. That's the way it's spelled in Sajmarg. It's a word that has a different meaning for people in the country of India as opposed to the what it means in India. But if you go to my Gratefullness meditation channel, if you look in the description box, or my Gratefullness meditation playlist on this channel, I have links to all these various articles and things, and some scars is explained in one of those articles, and it's in some of the books. Some of the books are free online in PDF form, and they deal with some scars quite substantially in those books, the official Sajmarg literature. And what it means is impressions, and and whatever you do, you're held accountable. You have to come back and work off in a future life, which I have found to be, ever since I've known about this, I guess you would call it a theory, to us as a theory, it's proven itself right to me over and over in various ways. And so I believe that all these people who are doing whatever they're doing will receive divine consequences. They'll have to face the music in future lives, and they're facing the music now because they're miserable. These people are miserable. And so they're the worst of the worst, but you don't compare yourselves to them because they're murderous sociopaths. Like they're criminals, and they're legalized criminals and power mongers, and they're the worst humanity represents. And so you could feel superior to them, or look down on them, or get mad at them because they hold power, and whatever the power dynamics are. And you can feel that way. That's sure. That's that's your prerogative. But why would you do that? Because we're all complicit in this system. And if we replaced one of those people, or that group, we'd have to become them, which is what I was saying in the other video. We'd have to turn ourselves into versions of them and do the evil they're doing to keep the system going, or just willfully make the system collapse, and that would bring about catastrophic loss of life, which is ultimately what has to happen. And there's so many weak people out there, so many people going in the wrong direction, and it's not for us to decide, but it's no tragedy if they disappear from the planet, because they're not doing a good job. All of us, to some extent. That's what my point of this video is. Like, if humanity got wiped off this planet, it wouldn't be a tragedy. It would be to humans, but all the rest of creation would be like, thank God. It's like what we feel like when we get rid of like some sort of mold in our house, or some sort of virus in our system, or some sort of cancer in our system. I mean, that's what we are, as a cancer on the planet. When there's that scene from the first Matrix movie where the Smith character is describing to the Morpheus character that human beings, there's only one other creature like us, and that's a virus. Like a virus is, has a similar effect on a human host as we do on the planet and the environment. And so, it wouldn't be a tragedy. And that's because we've all decided to go against God and the divine order of things and create a pleasure-based, lying, deceptive, entitlement, selfish system. And there are consequences for that for all of us. And when I was supporting RFK Jr., and, he still says some good things. I might have been listening to him because, I'm personally over it. When I was supporting him is because he said a lot of the right things, and I think he believes a lot of these things, and he might try to implement these things as president. But even if he wasn't elected, in terms of the debates, in terms of the national discourse, he would provide information that, all of us believe in one way or another, that we at least agree more with him than the traditional candidates. But he's deeply flawed. Like, he's a flawed individual, womanizer, an addict, somebody who's had, all these various issues. Apparently, he's going to debate Max Blumenthal or do an interview with him, which will be interesting to see. Maybe he'll reverse himself on Palestine. I mean, he's got, he's kind of boxed himself in. But what I was saying about it is, it doesn't matter because the system's collapsing. Whatever we do, I had made the decision not to vote some years ago because it, just a waste of time, and it doesn't affect the outcome, right? But very little does. I mean, there's very little that we can do to change the system itself. But I wasn't going to participate because why vote for two controlled candidates? But it's no big deal either way, whether you vote or not, whether you participate or not. You can look at it as a show that you're getting. That's like voting for a contestant on American Idol or something. There's probably better use for your time, but who cares, right? And you want to support a candidate, if it's fun for you to do, it doesn't matter. Like, none of this stuff matters, right? Trusting somebody is something different. If you're going to put your heart into it or give somebody your heart or invest in somebody, there's a little bit more to it than that you feel like they betrayed you or something like that, a candidate or a person. But given everything that we know about people in this planet, I expect people to let me down. Like it's I've been around people long enough to know, remember when they used to say, Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high, right? And, which is BS, but, everybody goes low. And that's the problem with humanity. People will usually go to the lowest common denominator. They will, when they finally make a decision, they'll make a fear-based decision. They'll make a decision that is, doesn't represent their higher nature. It's an ego-based decision. Most people, when they have a choice between what their soul wants and what their ego wants, and they debate it for a while, doing what's right or doing what's convenient, they'll end up doing what their ego wants. And that's just the way it is. And that's why we're all complicit. We were owned in that way because they have access to our egos. Like, they can't get access to our souls, but without our ego's cooperation, our souls really can't do anything. Our souls just sit there like like you are if you're playing a video game, you're taking a beating and you're watching the controllers and there's nothing you can do, and your character just keeps on getting beaten and beaten down and losing. That's what our souls are doing. They just watch us fail and make bad choices and do the wrong thing, and no matter what they do to provide warnings and provide guidance, our egos ignore it, and that's why we are owned by the system. It doesn't happen overnight. It's happened generations ago with our ancestors leaving the farm, leaving the natural life, leaving the tribes, whether they were forced or whether they did it by choice. At some point, they bought in. And the more you bought into the system and the more you lost contact with your soul and lost contact with your family and your neighbors and your family and became more and more isolated. And, these kids today, my wife and I were discussing this. There are places where they have litter boxes and dog bowls in schools. Like, like they have these kids who are furries. Like, it's gotten so crazy there with all this, like, new age or liberal agenda. It's really hard to fathom. It's really hard to reconcile how bad it's gotten and how quickly it's gotten that bad. And things that would be incomprehensible, you would say that will never happen, are happening right now. And when we grew up years and years ago, my wife and I, in the 70s and 80s, and then just all the way through it, what's happened in the last, since 2015, 16, is something that's unthinkable, that you never thought would happen. The degradation. These kids are so weak, and they're so, they spend most of their time in their internet, and they've bought into all these things, a lot of them. And even if they haven't, they can't sustain, the basic high school level, college level jobs that you would get at supermarkets and local, fast food restaurants and things. And that's why there's all these businesses closing, because these kids can't work and won't work and do those jobs. And they are liking the idea of these 15-minute cities, these Agenda 31 cities. They'll march right into them. They'll be happy with little cubicles where they get their social credit scores and those, all the they could have all their screens and their internet stuff, but they don't have a lot of, they have to clean up. They just need a bed and a place to connect with people on the internet, maybe some walk down to the store occasionally, having minimal interaction with the real world. I mean, it's just a totally different human being. They have been wrecked by the internet in ways that we really can't comprehend and understand. And so once our generations are dying off, which it looks like they're expediting that process right now, these kids will march right into those FEMA-based Agenda 21 houses, and I mean they're all for it, right? And but it won't work because they're caged animals. They break down. They're all depressed. They're all glitching out. They can't function, and they can't produce anything. They can't contribute to society in any meaningful way. I mean, the majority of them. I mean, it'll backfire from the sense that it's becoming more so unnatural, so against what we are supposed to do as functioning human beings, right? Like you take a cheetah, and a cheetah's born to run. A falcon's born to fly. Like we have these animals, and you put them in a cage, and they can't do what they're meant to do, and they suffer. We know that there's psychological makeup of zoo animals, and people have been zoo animals for a while. We're not meant to live in cities. We're not meant to live in these type of environments, and we're multifaceted human beings. We have levels of functioning. I started to find that out when I became a farmer, a homesteader, and I always looked down on those types of jobs, or thought that they were, that's how our society qualifies these jobs as labor-based jobs, and they're physically hard. And they look at jobs that you do with your mind, white-collar jobs, as being superior. But white-collar jobs, you barely function. You're not expressing a fraction of your abilities. But if you're living as a natural person, a tribal person, you're connected to nature, you're growing your food, you're doing things, there's so many ways that you express your full capacity or more of your capacity that's built in and innate to you, that has been repressed and suppressed, and it makes you feel like a more complete human being. Your self-esteem is better. You just feel better, like you lose your, whatever kind of psychological and these other types of disorders. You're out there as the sun, so you're getting vitamin D, you're healthy, you're breathing clean air, all these things. You're expressing your humanness, your full potential as a person. And then you throw in a connection of God and better relationships, better marital relationships, better familial relationships, and you're blossoming as a person, where all these things that they're doing now represses what you are naturally. And you have a very low level of functioning. You have a specified task, a mundane task you repeat over and over again, and then you just lose yourself in the internet, disconnected from your body and your the real world around you, and your spiritual sides, your spiritual side, your internal connection to divinity, your heart, all these things. And so all these things atrophy. The atrophy sets in, and it makes you feel bad. Then you get depressed and all these other side effects, all the bad energy that comes from the Wi-Fi and these other things. And we're all complicit in that, right? Like all you'd have to know is very little about the system, and then you could go out and do something else, right? Develop skills, develop abilities. This idea of pockets of the future. Develop ways that you're not so dependent on the system. Cultivate relationships with your neighbors and other people, and start building a community, and do things in a way that are against everything the system is forcing you into. But the sad fact of the matter is, people who claim to be truthers, people who look into this, like doing the research but don't want to change. The majority of people don't want to give anything up. In fact, they want to increase their lifestyle. They want to increase their privileges and their benefits, and that's okay. I mean, that's in some way natural on a lower level to do that. But so we're not that much different than the people who are controlling the system, or the sheeple, or anybody else. We just have a little slightly better awareness, and that really doesn't mean anything. How much have we changed personally? How much has our lifestyle changed? How much has we've learned to grow and gain as a person? What have we done differently since waking up? If the answer is nothing, then what's really the difference between you and a sheeple? That you have slightly more awareness of your slavery, because, other than that, there's no real difference. See, the bottom line is if you ask most people, and this has been done, there's like some kind of recent survey my wife was telling me about. But if you ask most people if they had to give something up and change, like you knew the world was ending, you knew that you were screwing future generations and really future versions of yourself in a different, incarnation, that you were screwing them over based in your lifestyle, and you had to drastically give things up. And you would suffer now, but it would be better for you and everybody else later, especially, the younger people, younger generations. Would you suffer? And people would say no. They don't want to change. And that goes for truthers as well. Yeah, you want to see other people change, but you still want to retain all the things that you like, all the things that are, special to you. And so there's no reason to feel better or superior because having this information, having information doesn't make you superior. It makes you more knowledgeable. Maybe it makes you more aware, more, you're willing to open up to things that are scary for other people. You're willing to face up to things other people can't. And, there's something there. That's not nothing. But if you don't use it to change for the better or, realize, the negativity of the system and do something differently and make yourself into some, better person and get access to, like I talk about divinity, connecting to divinity within. And people like that idea. I'm sure they're not against hearing that, but don't want to make the effort or don't want to try or don't want to open themselves up to something and, hope for something or whatever, which is, again, your prerogative, but, then claiming to be better than all these people or the liberals and we're all in this together. We're all contributing to the downfall of our species and this system that's demonic in nature and keeping us all down. Only spirituality will save this world. It's paramount, definitely important for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.